Story 1. I used to fantasize about surviving in an apocalyptic world, but now I just hope the initial blast kills me instantly while I'm sleeping or something. Story 2. Locate the nearest primary target so I can arrange to be vaporized instantly rather than die a slow, lingering death from starvation and radiation poisoning. Edit to add. Rest in peace to my inbox. I'm bringing a deck chair, single malt, and my dog. All are welcome. Please bring drinks and treats. Story 3. Literally nothing, although I definitely won't be going to work. Unless you already have a nuclear bunker or are a doomsday prepper, there is a very slim chance of survival, and I don't want to live underground for however many years just to last a couple of hours in a nuclear wasteland. Story 4. Does anyone else find it surprising that in a scenario where you are given 2 weeks' notice, the decision of a few selfish individuals with too much power and money could abruptly end all life on Earth? Why is there no effort to form a coalition to prevent a scheduled man-made apocalyptic event? Is it fatalism, learned helplessness, or the global bystander effect? Story 5. You go about your day as if nothing has changed. I am a Pakistani living in Islamabad. I faced the possibility of a nuclear conflict just last week, so I speak from experience. Story 6. I live in the United Kingdom. Short of moving to the Western Isles or the Scilly Islands, I feel trapped. So my partner and I will probably spend the next 2 weeks visiting our mothers to say goodbye. My partner reminded me that they are an accomplished sailor. I suppose we are headed to the port of Liverpool to borrow a yacht. Story 7. Buy a selection of beverages. Prepare my favorite movies and series, and enjoy the experience. Story 8. If the situation is limited to my country, I would inform everyone I know and love and move abroad as quickly as possible. If it leads to a global nuclear war, I would probably spend all my money on doing the things I have always wanted to do and then find a quick way out. There is no point in trying to endure it. The Earth's ecosystem would be permanently destroyed, and all forms of advanced technology would be irreversibly lost. Survivors would be sent back to, at best, a medieval dark age. However, the planet would be irradiated, making crop growth almost impossible. Lacking survival skills and with no communities to take shelter in, individuals would struggle as their immune systems would be unable to withstand the host of new diseases that break out, assuming the radiation does not kill them first. If someone does not die from another survivor attacking them for food, then their irradiated body would eventually ensure a long and painful death. Story 9. I'm in New Zealand, so I would probably move somewhere relatively remote where people are more accustomed to self-reliance and the occasional natural disaster. I wouldn't want to stay in the city where people struggle to handle a 2-hour power outage. Apart from that, I just hope and pray that we are not on the map that is used for bombing locations. Story 10. Stockpiling pain relievers, antibiotics, iodine, long-lasting food, and fruit and vegetable seeds, and then writing it out in Australia. Story 11. Anyone who thinks they can survive a nuclear war is out of their mind. 2 weeks? Everyone knows. I will do my best to gather my family and friends and mend relationships that have soured. Good luck with that, though, with everyone in a panic. The day before, I will find a nice spot, relax, and reminisce. Then, when I'm ready, lights out. Thanks for playing. Story 12. Move immediately to New Zealand. Who is bombing New Zealand? They are off the beaten path, have very little international attention, and possess a significant agricultural industry. Story 13. If Fallout has taught me anything, it is that you really do not want to be around for the post-apocalypse part. Go out peacefully in the blast. There will not be a world to live in anyway. Story 14. I love my family and friends. I am coming to terms with death and enjoying life to the fullest, celebrating by indulging in good food and drinks, but not so much that I waste any moments feeling hungover. I am savoring everything. Story 15. Everybody is assuming that their money will have value in those 2 weeks, but that only works if you are the only one who knows about the apocalypse. Most likely, you will spend your last 2 weeks starving and trying to hide in a world full of killers, rapists, thieves, predators, and scavengers. Story 16. Find the most likely targets and go stand there. There will not be much left to share after the war. Story 17. Prepare for it? I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a nuclear wasteland in a post-apocalyptic world. My preparation would be to perish in the initial blast. Story 18. Looks like we're taking a vacation to Australia, and we may come back depending on whether Russia's nuclear weapons worked or not. Story 19. Just as an information, there is a well-regarded book on this exact matter. It is called Nuclear War Survival Skills by Crescent Carney. Story 20. Finding out where the nearest potential target is so I can be near it when the bombs drop. A post-war scenario won't be like Fallout. It will be like Threads. I don't want to live through that. Story 21. Nothing. I live so far from a priority target that I am fairly certain I would only suffer secondary effects. I am 270 kilometers away from the nearest city at the very tip of southern Africa. No one will ever waste a nuclear weapon on us. Story 22. This might be a controversial perspective, but I will be doing absolutely nothing in terms of safety. I have no interest or intent to survive in a nuclear wasteland or a bunker for an extended period. If I know it's coming, I will probably just leave work and do something enjoyable. After reading the comments, it seems this is not a controversial perspective at all. Many of us are perfectly fine with the prospect of death by nuclear event. Story 23. I love living paycheck to paycheck. I will have to work until those bombs drop. I will probably need to give a 2-week notice before I'm vaporized. Story 24. I live in a major metropolitan area, which means there is a missile aimed at me right now. I am enjoying my last 2 weeks to the fullest. Story 25. Copying my previous response to this question. First, fill the bath. Fill all water containers you can. If a nuclear weapon detonates, the fallout will come down with the first rainfall after the blast and enter reservoirs, but the water in the pipes now is clean, so that will be drinking water as long as it lasts. That will help avoid the most intense of the fission products. Second, identify a structurally strong part of the building you are in, and go there if you notice a flash. Seeking shelter under tables is acceptable as well. The advice to duck and cover may seem trivial, but it genuinely improves your chances of avoiding death or serious injury. Third, prioritize the food in your refrigerator and freezer. If the power goes out, that will spoil first, so use it up. Share it with others if you need to, which leads to the final point. Help each other. Support your neighbors, your community, and your town. If you have the capacity, offer shelter to those whose homes were destroyed. If you have clean drinking water, share it with those who lack it. It may take months for some form of normalcy to return, by which I mean some electricity for vital needs and supplies distributed. And in the meantime, it is up to us to care for one another. Remember, humans are social beings. Alone we fall, but together we survive. The world may never fully return to what it was, but it never has. Don't lose hope. There will be light at the end of the tunnel. Story 26. Renting a hotel room in a location known to be ground zero and getting drunk is not something I would want to experience. Story 27. Head to the coast with a car full of bottled water and food. Steal a sailboat and sail to South America. Note to self, learn to sail soon. Story 28. I live in a major city on the East Coast, Baltimore. We are in close proximity to Washington, D.C., and we have a major port with large hospitals, so I am sure I would be completely affected. Story 29. I'm feeling overwhelmed and struggling with my thoughts. I don't see myself as a survivor, and I don't want to face a world that feels so difficult. Story 30. Drugs, the good ones, and sex, all the sex with people I would never. I will do everything I can to gain 50 pounds in 2 weeks by eating everything in sight. Story 31. Buying a one-way ticket to a remote island and getting a couple of those 10 to 15-year food kits from Costco. Not like going into debt matters at this point. Story 32. Ensure I was close enough to the first bomb to explode. There are no winners from nuclear war, and the future is bleak. It is quicker and better to run toward the light. Story 33. Buy all my favorite foods, treats, and drinks, celebrate, talk to all my loved ones, then head to the blast zone. Society is going to collapse anyway, and I don't have the skills to live off the land. I would rather die quickly than slowly from starvation, thirst, and radiation poisoning. Story 34. I'm going shark fishing this weekend. I might spend some quality time with my wife, stock up on beverages, and have a neighborhood party similar to a hurricane party. Story 35. I have always said this to everyone. If the apocalypse is imminent, whether due to nuclear war, zombies, toxic snow, or toxic rain, I will not prolong my agony and will welcome it with open arms. What is the point of trying to survive when everything else is dead, including crops and produce? Story 36. Find the most likely ground zero and wait there. The best place to be during a nuclear war is at the detonation site of the first nuclear weapon. Story 37. If I'm the only one who knows it will happen and everyone is going about business as usual with no looting or riots, then I would spend about 300 pounds on alcohol and save it until the last day to enjoy it. That's what I want to do, so if I knew there would be no more tomorrows, I would do it anyway. Story 38. Go to Germany or Austria where a person had a bomb shelter that he would hide in, which can withstand over 20,000 tons of bombs because he made it highly reinforced. Can also hold a few thousand people per layer or section. Story 39. I will commit all the crimes I never did because I would have been in prison for decades. Seriously, why not? Go out with a bang. The problem is that a lot of other people have also had that idea. There will be open conflict between communities extending to nations. After all, why not harm some other people before we all go? Eventually, some of them are going to figure out that if they form a group, they are stronger. Then you have roving gangs just looking for anything they can destroy or kill or both in either order. The good news is that if they survive long enough to escape, they may just become something more. Story 40. I will do everything that is forbidden and more for 2 weeks, but in a positive way so that I can create a compelling backstory. Story 41. I live directly across from a military base. I am stocking up on high-quality steaks and beverages. It will be over in a matter of seconds. Story 42. Spend 13 days feeling overwhelmed about it and possibly disassociate. Then, on day 14, I realize I haven't done anything for 13 days. I attempt to dig a bunker in one day and get blown up in the process. Story 43. I live a few miles outside of New York City, so I'm in trouble. I'll probably open a nice bottle of scotch and prepare for the light show. If it happens, I'm not trying to be around for the rebuilding. Story 44. Getting some ice cream and sitting in the garden in my boxers while playing Chuck-Karen Macaron and looking at the lovely mushrooms. Story 45. Studying maps to determine where my best chance of survival would be. I will load the car with essential supplies and go there. I will buy a stylish leather jacket that can become my signature look in the post-industrial world. Story 46. Denial, denial. Slow acceptance. Panic. Denial. Panic. On the last day, I hope to sit with my loved ones, enjoy a good bottle of whiskey, and appreciate the experience. Story 47. I doubt there will be decent medical care after a nuclear event, so I will spend my 2 weeks doing my best to avoid prostate cancer. Story 48. I think a trip to the desert would be delightful. I have always enjoyed trips with my family. I believe each of us should be limited to 1 bin of items to bring along, mostly books, along with some hobby materials. I would definitely be bringing my complete Locksport collection. We should stock up on food and water. I will also get a couple of bottles of bourbon for our journey. We need to ensure the tools in the car are in good condition, clear out the first aid supplies from the house, and pack them in the car before hitting the road. Whether or not nuclear war occurs sooner or later is beside the point. We would be enjoying one last hurrah before whatever happens next. Story 49. I think I would go to the countryside and gather plenty of food, water, and supplies. I am quite sure there are no relevant threats in my country or near the mountains where I would go. I may not survive it all, but I believe I could last for at least a few weeks. I would keep a gun with me for quick action if needed. Story 50. Head to the nearest likely target area and hope to be instantly eliminated. I read Nuclear War, a scenario a few months ago, and I do not want to be a survivor after the bombs drop. Story 51. Finding a ground zero waiting for detonation and destruction. If we are planning to launch nuclear weapons on the world that far in advance, it is no longer a world in which humans should exist. Story 52. I would probably do a quick tidy up, just in case anyone stops by to say goodbye. British, in case you were wondering. Story 53. I assume I am the only one who knows about the impending doom the world will face. So I think I will quit my job, withdraw as much money as possible, and spend the next 2 weeks with my family, doing as much as we can to have fun. I probably won't tell them what is going to happen. Hopefully, we will have an instant, painless death. Story 54. Try to have as much fun as possible. If you don't know where the nuclear weapons are dropping, there's not much you can do. Story 55. I live in an area that could be the first to be wiped out. Therefore, I will definitely be moving in 2 weeks. Story 56. Nuclear war is not like in a movie or a video game. You die horribly and that's all. The chances of survival are extremely limited. You can't be prepared even if you buy a bunker. Watching the film Threads can help illustrate this. Story 57. I live in Australia, so I am going to fly to New Zealand to find a doomsday bunker that all the wealthy people built there and move in. Story 58. I hope I live close enough to Chicago that when it is affected, I will barely notice it. However, my luck may suggest otherwise. Story 59. I mean, if it's a sure thing, I'm taking my savings and maxing out my credit cards. I'm going to take my kids everywhere they've always wanted to go. Story 60. Going to find that sweet spot and gain some superpowers. Reality. Not bothering to clean, just getting into bed and enjoying sweet oblivion. Story 61. I am going to look for a nice place so I can become one of those Fallout skeletons that makes people briefly stop and wonder what happened here. As a backup plan, I will get a leather outfit and join the most promising raider group I can find. Story 62. Spend time with loved ones, play video games, and eat anything I want. That's about it. The problem with the majority of post-apocalyptic fiction is that things never improve or return to where we are now. Especially if you live in a developed nation, even with existing problems, do you realize how good you have it? You have access to infrastructure, clean water, food, roads, safe communities, and the internet. Most of us are likely commenting on this using our smartphones, which are essentially magical devices that allow us to do anything from video calling, which once seemed like space-age technology, to accessing the entirety of the world's recorded knowledge and history. As long as I have the money and know where to go, I can order almost anything, and it will arrive at my door with no additional effort from me. I can literally order fresh-baked cookies and a glass of cold milk, and they will show up in 30 minutes or less. Yet, I'm supposed to transition from that to surviving in a nuclear wasteland when most of us panic when we lose access to the internet for more than 15 minutes? No, I would just want to enjoy my remaining time and hope I'm in an impact zone so it ends quickly. Story 63. I would spend some of that time debating whether to become an environmental storytelling skeleton. Story 64. Is this the part of the plan where they reveal what is about to happen to the good people of the world to see who is paying attention? Story 65. I mean, what can you really do? We have food in Mylar bags and water stored for an emergency situation. We grow a lot of our own food and live in a rural area, but other than that, there isn't much more that can be done. I don't know if you would want to survive either. It wouldn't be easy to navigate a Fallout-style wasteland. Story 66. If I know I have a high chance of dying from it, I think I would reconnect with my ex, spend time with her and my family, and then be glad that this grand experiment called the United States and humanity is truly over. Story 67. Aside from spending my last couple of weeks with my children and loved ones, nothing else matters. I wouldn't want to be one of the very few survivors if most of the world had been eliminated. I would rather go out quickly in the initial attack than face a slow, painful, and horrific death from nuclear poisoning or severe cancers. If I survive starvation, contaminated water, and homelessness after most buildings have been destroyed, that is, Story 68. Have as much fun as I can, come to terms with death, and then drive to ground zero to be vaporized. I do not want to be around for what follows. Story 69. In 2 weeks is really bad. That doesn't work for me. Can't we reschedule for the end of July? That's the first available time slot for me. I'm really busy beforehand. Story 70. Buy a large amount of Colombian powder, some bottles of whiskey, and a comfortable chair. Sit in my yard with my wife and dog and enjoy our last moments together. Story 71. When my grandmother was a little girl, probably around 13 in the 1950s, there was one of those end-of-the-world predictions that circulated. Her favorite thing was tomatoes with a bit of salt. So on Doomsday, she bought a bag of tomatoes, a stack of comic books, and went to her favorite hill. She sat under a tree reading comic books and eating tomatoes while waiting for the world to end. For me, it would be going camping and playing frisbee with my dog. Story 72. Nothing. No one wants to survive a true nuclear war unless they are a multi-billionaire with their bunkers ready. Even if you have access to a new energy source that takes a long time to deplete, you will eventually asphyxiate or succumb to radiation poisoning. Story 73. There are many studies from the 1920s and 1930s, as well as live events like the Bikini Atoll, where you can learn about how people truly act in such situations. The result is that we all believe we are the hero of the story. We assume we will survive, often due to common sense and, in some cases, because we prepared for this situation. However, you are not the hero. If you find yourself near that event, you are likely finished. If not immediately from the blast, then due to the radiation that follows. All of Europe was affected when the Chernobyl disaster occurred, and that was not even an explosion. Rain and wind carried radioactive waste across the entire continent, leading to many people being born with disabilities for years afterward, and cancer cases skyrocketed. When a nuclear war breaks out, just hope that you will be vaporized in the initial bombing. What happens afterward is truly no fun. Story 74. Nobody is going to bomb the island I live on, so I guess it will be a slow death by radiation depending on how bad the war is. I will probably just drink rum and relax on the beach, though. Story 75. Roasting marshmallows. Washington, D.C., being a few hours south of me, I'm aiming for toasted and highly toasted. The marshmallow is only slightly done. Story 76. Honestly, I have been filling my bathtub with water and storing it in every container I can find. My husband thought I was crazy until I reminded him we would not have running water. I also grabbed a lot of iodine tablets from the pharmacy yesterday. Story 77. Promoting the use of atomic energy and key areas of influence among a specific group of people who hold excessive power in others' lives. They all kept journals from one individual about his dreams, goals, and life, focusing on the key figure who is in control, as they are ultimately cowards and weak. Story 78. Since I am disabled, I do not have many options. If I had a passport, I would go to Svalbard, Norway. I am confident that this place would be safe. Aside from that, I might try to find a very remote cabin about 40 to 50 miles from anyone. I would purchase a lot of ammunition and a rifle. I would also print and laminate anything I need for survival purposes. Story 79. I would travel to Brazil to my friend's place. South America won't be affected. They would be all right. Story 80. I will be waiting for them to call me and ask if it's okay first. If they don't, they will all be facing serious consequences. Story 81. Get my apartment in order and prepare it for my deployment as a reservist. Purchase quality socks and begin light exercise. Story 82. Sell everything. Buy out of the money, put options. Get some iodine pills, food, and survival gear, then go on a vacation to an island in the southern hemisphere for a while. Once things settle down, head to the largest urban area that wasn't affected too severely and hope that at least one of the currencies I hold retains some value. Story 83. There is absolutely nothing I can do. I live in a location near 3 large cities, 2 of which would be definite targets, so I feel hopeless. Story 84. Move as far away from likely targets as possible. I don't care about myself, but my cat needs to survive and live a happy, natural life, and I will provide that for her no matter the cost. I can happily die afterward. Story 85. I live in the Interstate 95 corridor. I can see the Philadelphia skyline on most days. This area is expected to be heavily impacted in every scenario. It is a population center, a symbolic target, and has military and pharmaceutical manufacturing, several air bases, including an aerial refueling hub, rail hubs, commercial docks, a naval foundry, and mothballed Navy ships. Story 86. Drive my car very fast so I can replicate the experience of the Autobahn until I eventually drive myself. Story 87. Nothing. Because there is nothing we can do to prepare for it. If nuclear war breaks out, humanity is done. Even those not anywhere near a detonation would soon become victims of radiation carried by the wind, along with the nuclear winter caused by radioactive soot in the stratosphere, which blocks out almost all sunlight. If anything, I would want to be in a city that gets hit. Instant death, no pain, probably not even enough time for my brain to register the blast before it is vaporized. The other option is suffering from radiation sickness and starvation long enough to witness a barren planet that our own species created through anger and hatred. Story 88. I am going to Rockstar Games' main headquarters to demand a copy of Grand Theft Auto 6 on the spot, finished or not. The world leaders will not deprive me of that small joy. I refuse. Story 89. My sister is about to have her first child, and it's been a few years coming. I will do my best to ensure they have hope, as hopeless as it may seem. I will go to our parents' place, grab the camping gear and solar panels, and try to survive for them and keep them going. I am currently in Australia, and relative to the situation, Tasmania and the South Coast might have a chance. Story 90. Figure out where the first ones will hit and grab my lawn chair, so I get completely vaporized. I don't want to live through the aftermath. Story 91. I wonder if the world was given an obvious and true statement about nuclear war starting, whether every citizen would rush their governments and try to take action. I imagine that if everyone's safety were at stake, the military would also take a stand and oppose their government. Story 92. Enjoying the last 2 weeks with my husband and cat as much as we can. We are spending quality time together. Story 93. In this scenario, assuming I am the only one who knows it is coming, I would immediately liquidate everything and reserve a hotel for a year or two in the far southern hemisphere, probably in Patagonia, Argentina, or Chile, or perhaps New Zealand's South Island. I would bring my immediate family there, my wife and child, then enjoy the time together and convert as much money as possible into local currency before the banks we use and everything we left behind are gone. I would also shift investments that I cannot readily access to stocks in southern hemisphere countries, hoping I could claim them later. From there, we would be refugees with stable housing for a while, putting us in a position to take advantage of any programs in other safe countries for relocating refugees. However, I suspect the country we end up in would be fairly safe. We might receive some kind of fast track to Australia or New Zealand due to our English language skills after the event. Unfortunately, I cannot bring my parents and siblings because they lack passports, and my in-laws would only be a liability, so it would just be us. Story 94. I am a Floridian. I am going to set up a boat party barge in the Gulf and watch the fireworks while enjoying some drinks. Story 95. Moving all my firearms, ammunition, and food to the largest sailing boat I can find, then heading for the tropics and waiting for this to pass. Story 96. Determine how I want my environmental storytelling framework to be discovered and prepare for it. Additionally, arrange my plushies in unusual formations to perplex whoever finds me. Story 97. A lot of content goes against community guidelines. Then, there is a road trip to the nearby impact site for a front row seat. Story 98. I am buying the materials needed for a peaceful and eternal rest and preparing my house to have unlimited fireworks. I do not want to survive the collapse of society, nor do I want my remains to be present. Story 99. Hoarding and preserving petrol, medication, food, water, and general supplies is necessary. My town isn't large enough to be directly bombed, but I might consider storing some supplies underground in the nearby mountain. The townspeople where I live tend to panic buy, so it's a matter of being first to act. Story 100. I just need the location of a defense industry billionaire's bunker and heavy machinery post-strike so I can die happy with my well-developed sense of egalitarianism. Story 101. Move north? The problem is that once everything is cut off, the Great White North will no longer receive shipments of necessities. So now what? Find a giant bomb shelter? Unlikely. I have no idea, so I would come to Reddit to see what everyone is doing. Story 102. Dig a 6-foot deep hole, 4 feet wide, and 8 feet deep. In 2 weeks, I will lie in it to save anyone from having to clear up my remains. Story 103. I would wait and see. Depending on whether my city could be a target, I would consider asking to leave. I'm not sure if that would be wise or not. Story 104. Rent an Airbnb in the center of the nearest major city. I am sure I would be vaporized instantly rather than die of radiation sickness. Story 105. Nothing. I live in England. We will be gone as soon as there is a nuclear war. If I'm lucky, I will be with the one I love at the end. Story 106. There would be global outrage and a global coalition to deal with the individual who announces a nuclear attack 2 weeks in advance. However, most ordinary people would likely continue with their day and discuss how it probably won't happen until it's too late. Story 107. Nothing. The aliens will blow it up before it goes off. I'm truly convinced they do not want nuclear war to start. Story 1081. Not show up for work. Indulge in food. Play my childhood video games. Go hiking in nature. Watch my favorite childhood movies. Hug my parents. Call my brother. Go to the nearest potential target and browse TikTok. Laugh at TikTokers reacting. 10. And Story 109. Restock my campervan with more food and water. I already carry at least a month's supply of both on board for me and my dog. Then drive down and get on my sailboat, which is also very well stocked with fresh water and long-lasting food. After that, set sail south. I'm not saying I'd survive at sea, but I can make fresh water and catch fish for as long as I can, until something, someone, or a mishap takes me or the boat out. Or I might get lucky and survive for years. Either way, I'll be in my happy place, at sea with my dog, fishing and living free. Story 110. I bought a Sega Dreamcast overclocked NTSC-J with HDMI mod and DEMU, and I'm going to play some Shenmue. Story 111. Nothing. I am spending time with my family and living my best life. It is the end of the world, and I feel fine. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.